Welcome to the XXL-Special on Starfield and everything there is to know about the upcoming Sci-Fi hit. Und eine deutsche Version des Videos findet ihr im Link in der Videobeschreibung oder auf unserem Kanal Die Loge. Since the announcement of Starfield at E3 2018, interest in Bethesda Game Studios' potential sci-fi hit has been huge. However, it is also the first space game in many years to the developer by the makers of the extremely popular Fallout and the Elder Scrolls series. And all the information, gameplay scenes and leaks available so far indicate that Starfield will be a game of epic proportions, taking players on an exciting and epic journey across the universe. And if you think the video did a good job of keeping you informed and entertained, please don't forget to click on the bell icon and the subscribe button, so you'll be notified right away the next time there's something new. Thank you. Of course, the exact story of Starfield is not yet known, but we have received some information and hints that give us a pretty good idea of what to expect from the game. Starfield is an open-world role-playing game set in a futuristic sci-fi universe that uses some MMO-type elements while remain distinctly a single-player experience. It will take players into a world of adventure, discovery and danger, but will not feature any interaction with other players, most likely including co-op. According to Todd Howard, executive producer of Bethesda Game Studios, Starfield will feature a completely new universe created specifically for the game and as a single-player experience. The development of Starfield began more than 10 years ago, when the team at Bethesda Game Studios started to develop concepts and ideas for a new game. In the years that followed, these various concepts were tested and discarded until finally the concept now known as Starfield was developed. The development of the game was very elaborate and complex right from the start, as a completely new world, a new franchise, and in the space genre beta set completely new worlds had to be created. The Bethesda Game Studios team worked closely with other Bethesda Softworks departments on the development of the game. They used the most modern technologies and tools available with the aim of creating a world that is as immersive and alive as possible. And of course, many of Bethesda's key developers have worked on Starfield, including Todd Howard, who serves as a game executive producer and director. Other developers are Emil Pagliarulo as lead designer and Mark Lampert as art director, all far from unknown names in the industry. The team has worked hard to create a world full of adventure and discovery. There will be an enormous variety of places to visit, from gloomy, unexplored space regions to lively and atmospheric space stations and planets teeming with life. Players will be able to make their own unique and sometimes difficult decisions to find their own way through the game and the galaxy of Starfield. Because our decisions have a direct and noticeable effect on the course of the game and the fate of this galaxy. Starfield will also feature a variety of alien species, races and cultures that we players can interact with in a variety of ways. There will also be a variety of factions and organizations, some friendly and some hostile, which we naturally want to be explored. Players can therefore decide which faction they want to support or fight, and thus experience their own stories and adventures, which will therefore also have a different impact each time they start the game. So it's an exciting way to increase the replay value. Another important element of Starfield will of course be space. Players will be able to control their own spaceship, fly through the galaxy and always have their flying home with them, so to speak. We can take control of our spaceship directly and adapt it to different situations and game conditions using various mechanics. We can land on planets to mine resources, find treasures and complete missions. Or we can simply explore the galaxy and become explorers. But of course, we players can also interact with other spaceships, either through trade or through exciting space battles. For this, Bethesda Game Studios promise that Starfield will offer a hugely immersive gaming experience that will immerse the players in a world of adventure and discovery. In this way, Starfield is said to break the boundaries of the genre and give players every opportunity to experience their own stories and adventures in a futuristic universe. Starfield definitely has the potential to be another masterpiece from Bethesda and to raise the genre of sci-fi role-playing games to a new level. But this of course requires some other areas, which is why we take a closer look at the most important ones. An important point in a game in space is a sense of the infinity of space, so the size of the playable universe is fundamental to begin with. At the same time, this point is one of the most discussed topics in connection with Starfield beforehand. After all, the size and complexity of the worlds is a decisive factor for the gaming experience. Bethesda has shown in the past that they are capable of creating huge open worlds with several hundreds of hours of content. But how big will Starfield's universe be, and how will it stand out from other games? So far, Bethesda has revealed little valid information about the size of Starfield's universe. Todd Howard, however, has given some hints in interviews and press conferences, but of course no concrete numbers or details. Howard did, however, confirm that Starfield will be pretty big, but he also stressed that the size of the world is not the most important factor for the gaming experience. However, it is highly likely that the universe in Starfield will be quite large. After all, that term can definitely take on epic proportions in the context of previous games from Bethesda. After all, the game is supposed to take players on a journey through the universe and contain a multitude of planets, space stations and other locations that are not just visual accessories, but are supposed to represent playable areas. Such a universe cannot therefore be small per se if this great variety of content and activities is to be offered. The comparison with other games can therefore help to better understand the size of Starfield's universe. Bethesda Game Studios has already created some of the largest open worlds in gaming history in the past, including Fallout 4 and The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Both games are known for their size, complexity and attention to detail, and both have a good 10 years under their belts. In terms of technical possibilities, however, 10 years is an absolute world in the gaming genre, which is of course interesting for the current possibilities for game worlds. Fallout 4 is probably familiar to most as a post-apocalyptic world set in an alternate version of Boston, Massachusetts. The world is still huge and features a variety of areas, from urban centers to rural areas. There are hundreds of places to explore, from small abandoned settlements to large cities and landmarks. And in terms of playtime and replay value, Fallout 4 is still one of the attractive games today. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is once again significantly more successful and is set in a fantastic world with a medieval Norse setting. The world is also huge and offers a variety of landscapes, including mountains, forests and rivers. There are a variety of cities, villages and towns to explore, as well as numerous quests and activities. And compared to these games, some of which are 10 years old, Starfield's universe will be much more larger and more extensive once again. After all, the game is supposed to offer players the opportunity to explore a universe and visit countless planets, space stations and other locations. Another comparison, but not from Bethesda, could be drawn with the game No Man's Sky, which was released 2016 and also offers a huge universe to explore. The game contains 18 trillion randomly generated planets, giving players the opportunity to visit countless worlds. However, No Man's Sky has been criticized in the past for its limited content, which, after a rather rocky road post-release, led to an overhaul of the game and an extensive expansion of content. No Man's Sky also clearly showed that an almost infinite variety sounds great, but cannot necessarily score with its variety in terms of gameplay. It therefore remains to be seen how large the Starfield universe will actually be and how this game world can be experienced. However, Bethesda has already proven itself to be a master in creating huge open worlds in the past, and it is very likely that they will also transfer this talent to the universe of Starfield. It is also an advantage here that the strengths of these game worlds, as single-player experiences, will remain with Starfield, and that there will be no experiments with multiplayer options, after which these can quickly become the undoing of the game. In conclusion, however, it remains to be said in any case that the universe of Starfield will be at least as large and extensive as that of the previous Bethesda titles, and we can again expect several hundreds hours of gameplay. But what is known so far about the different planets and areas we can experience, and how does that affect the possibilities? Because as game deciding and central aspect, besides our own spaceship, are these different planets that we can visit. But how many planets will there be, and will they be handmade or even procedurally generated? So far, Bethesda Game Studios have revealed a little about how many planets there will be in Starfield. Todd Howard, however, has hinted that there will be many different and distinct planets that players can visit. However, it is still unclear whether these will be completely handmade worlds or even combinations of handmade and procedurally generated content. The latter is very likely, however, as a completely handmade game world with a multitude of huge planets and stations would be impossible to represent. So it is worth looking at other planetary space game genres, which also mostly rely on hand-built areas and a procedural component. Procedural generation, in this context, refers to the technology used to create content automatically rather than manually. This means that programs and algorithms are used to create planets, landscapes, and other content. An example of a game that uses procedural generation heavily is the aforementioned No Man's Sky. However, some fans would like to see a combination of handmade and procedurally generated content, and this would mean a greater variety of planets and landscapes. If all planets were handmade, this would mean that there would be significantly fewer planets, which would offer more detailed and elaborately designed environments, but in the space setting could only offer a very limited immersion of space. On the other hand, the exclusive use of procedural generation could mean that although there are many planets, as in No Man's Sky, they all look relatively generic, and the game content can become very repetitive and quickly monotonous. Bethesda has had and shown experience with both handcrafted and procedurally generated content in their games in the past. For example, in Fallout 4, some areas and characters were created by hand, while others were procedurally generated. And a similar approach was also taken in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Based on this, it is more than likely that this will be also used for Starfield, albeit on a much larger scale. But regardless of how many planets there will ultimately be in Starfield and whether they will be handmade or procedurally generated, one thing is certain: the world will offer players a wealth of discoveries and adventures. But what types of planets will there be, and how will they differ from each other? What gameplay effects can we expect as a result? So far, Bethesda has only revealed scattered information about the types of planets that will exist in Starfield. However, a wide variety of planets and landscapes has been emphasized to give players a varied experience. However, it is also possible that some planets will be empty, destroyed, or simply barren. This is because empty and barren planets are, of course, a common theme in many science fiction stories. These planets often have inhospitable environments and are unable to support life. In Starfield, these planets can be generated either manually or through procedural generation. Another type of planets that could appear in Starfield are gas giant planets. These planets consist mainly of gas and often have no solid surface. They often have a dense atmosphere and are dangerous to explore due to their size and gravity. The most famous examples of such gas giants are, for example, from Star Wars the Cloud City Bespin, or from the Eternal Space Alpha Star Citizen, the very atmospheric Cloud City Orison. Another type of planet we will probably see in Starfield are the ocean planets. These planets have no real land masses and consist mainly of water. They can therefore have a rich underwater fauna and flora and offer the player the opportunity to explore an underwater environment. So 1000 miles under the sea in a sci-fi setting. Other possible planet types are desert planets like from Dune, ice planets, and all kinds of habitable planets that can host human-like life. Habitable planets are of course among the most interesting for the players, as they offer the possibility of discovering a variety of cultures and civilizations and lots of aliens. Or are we the aliens then? Ah yes, sci-fi philosophy. It is likely that Bethesda will also use a combination of handmade and procedurally generated planets and also creatures in this area to give players a varied experience. Handmade planets often offer a higher level of detail and are usually rich in unique features and characteristics. In contrast, procedurally generated planets offer greater variety and can usually be created more quickly. With a good mix, the best of both worlds is achieved here. Whatever other types of planets will appear in Starfield, they will definitely want to offer players a memorable experience. Whether breathtaking landscapes, abundant wildlife, or a unique civilization, the planets in Starfield should offer players a wealth of possibilities, make the universe explorable, and enable new discoveries. However, it can be considered certain that certain planets are inhabited by alien civilizations. In the past, games by Bethesda game studios such as Fallout 4 and The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim have already contained the most diverse and also most varied civilization, and is confirmed that Starfield will contain similar elements. Players can therefore encounter intelligent life that can be friendly, hostile, or neutral. Another aspect that could influence the types of planets in Starfield are the prerequisites and technologies used by the player. For example, there might be planets that can only be reached with special spaceships or suitable equipment. Other planets could be very dangerous and require heavy armament. So there are many possibilities to create challenges and make the possible worlds more interesting. But what is our task and how do we spend our time in Starfield? We are of course talking about the gameplay and the possibilities that are offered to us. We can complete a variety of different missions, collect resources, research new technologies, explore, and much more. The different planets we encounter offer a wealth of discoveries and challenges. As a player, we slip into the role of a space traveler and can create our own adventures by visiting and exploring different planets. So there are many ways to spend time in the Starfield universe, and each experience here will be unique in its own right. However, at the heart of this experience is our own spaceship, including various RPG elements and the ability to customize and upgrade our ship to our liking. This is because our spaceship plays a central role as the starting point for all areas, as it is the key to exploring the game universe. It allows us to travel between planets and space stations and plays an equal important role in space battles and other activities. The player's spaceship will also be customizable, meaning that the player can modify and upgrade it according to their needs and preferences. The player will be able to modify weapons, shields, engines, and other parts of the spaceship to optimize it for different situations and bring it closer to their own playstyle. Another important and similar gameplay mechanic of Starfield are the RPG elements, which allow the player to customize their character and improve their skills. As in other Bethesda games, the player can design his character according to his wishes and equip him with certain abilities and characteristics. Likewise, he can also build relationships with other characters in the game and influence them through his actions. Therefore, nothing stands in the way of friendships or conflicts. However, unlike other Bethesda games, Starfield is supposed to focus more on the plot than the main quest. Therefore, it was announced that Starfield will have a much more branching plot than previous titles and that the player's decisions will have a more massive influence on the course of the further plot. Because in addition to the main quest, Starfield will offer players a variety of side quests and general activities. Players can discover new planets and space stations, get to know new races and cultures and trade. Player will also be able to take on missions and join factions to gain special rewards and equipment, as well as influence their relationships with other characters directly in-game. Another unique game mechanic of Starfield is the ability to control and fight the character in zero gravity. We know this, for example, from the Space Alpha Star Citizen or other genre representatives. The player can float through space, examine objects, and move freely in weightlessness. This opens up new possibilities for defeating opponents and overcoming obstacles, and incidentally, it is a hell of a lot of fun. In addition, there will be other different ways of moving around in Starfield apart from traveling with your spaceship or floating through space. The player will not only have his own spaceship, but also other vehicles such as rovers, bikes and the like, which can also be controlled directly. With these vehicles, the player can then explore planets and other celestial bodies and discover new places that do not allow a large spaceship. A crafting system enables the player to produce items and equipment. To do this, the player can collect various raw materials and use them to create items that can help him on his journey through the universe or represent prerequisites. The crafting system will offer an additional possibility to further customize and improve your character. Similar to Cyberpunk 2077, various modifications for our ship, character and other items are conceivable. Overall, Starfield will offer players a variety of game mechanics that were not available in previous Bethesda games. The possibility of owning your own spaceship and traveling through the universe will play a central role, but will not be the only innovation. So, Starfield is not a simple Skyrim in space? But are we expecting too much from Starfield? After the release of Fallout 76 in 2018, Bethesda had to deal with many problems. The game was rightfully rated poorly by gamers and critics alike, and there were numerous technical issues. This has led to many players being initially skeptical about Starfield, especially as it is a completely new franchise. Nevertheless, many players have high expectations for Starfield, especially due to the fact that it is the first completely new franchise from Bethesda in many years. Many are hoping for an innovative and exciting gaming experience that takes the players into a fascinating science fiction world and relies on the strengths of a Skyrim or Fallout 4, combined with exciting innovations. In addition, the previous mentioned problems were probably recognized, and it was clearly empathized that lessons have been learned from the mistakes of Fallout 76 and that Starfield will offer a high-quality gaming experience. The studio has also announced that Starfield will only be released when it is ready, which indicates that it will not be rushed like many other titles, cue Cyberpunk 2077. This has also been made clear once again by the recent postponements. Another important factor is the fact that it will be the first game by Bethesda Game Studios to be published exclusively for Xbox and the PC platform after the takeover of Bethesda by Microsoft in 2020. This is expected to result in higher quality and a smoother gaming experience. All in all, the expectations of players for Starfield are very high, especially because it is the first completely new franchise and new innovations are expected in combination with old strengths. But another important factor for players' expectations of Starfield is also an improved combat system. Many are hoping for a significant improvement in the combat system compared to previous Bethesda games and expect a combination of strong RPG elements. But what can we expect from the story of this upcoming solo adventure? The story of Starfield is set in a futuristic world where humanity has long since left Earth and is now exploring the universe. The player takes on the role of a character who decides to explore the universe and embarks on a journey into the infinite reaches of space. The story therefore revolves around the pursuit of knowledge and adventure, with the player encountering a variety of challenges and dangers. Sounds almost like the intro of Star Trek, only in their words and with a much smaller crew. In Starfield, the player has basically the opportunity to write his or her very own story by making decisions that can influence the course of the game over and over again. The decisions the player makes thus have a direct impact on the course of the plot, the development of their own character, and the fate of the factions and characters in the game. Players also have the opportunity to build deeper relationships with NPCs by interacting with them and making choices that affect those relationships. As with other Bethesda games, Starfield's story will feature a very branching narrative system that offers players various ways to interact and advance the plot. Players will be able to take on various missions to improve their skills and relationships, acquire their own specializations and abilities, and ultimately prepare for the endgame. In any case, however, the main quest takes players on an epic journey, exploring the universe and its secrets and, of course, facing daunting tasks and decisions. Another important aspect of Starfield's story is the game's premise. The idea of the player exploring the universe will play an important role, as the player will be able to explore different planets, spaceships and space stations. However, this exploration is not limited to discovering new places, but also to discovering new information and secrets hidden in the world of Starfield that can have a huge impact depending on whether they are found or not. For these missions and decisions that the player makes in the game influence the course of the plot and can even directly determine the fate of entire factions in the game. The rise or fall of entire worlds. The player can decide for or against certain factions and feel the consequences of his decisions. This makes the story of Starfield even more dynamic and allows players to experience the game in different ways and, of course, generate a whole new game experience with a restart. All in all, the story of Starfield has the potential to be one of the best RPG stories in space, similar to the Mass Effect series. Players are introduced to an intriguing science fiction world, which the developers have detailed and lovely crafted to be full of mystery and challenge. And we are confronted with themes like morality, ethics, and the consequences of decisions again and again in Starfield. The story of Starfield will basically be closely connected with the game mechanics, especially with the possibility of owning your own spaceship and traveling through the universe with it. But which technical platform can we count on and which graphical level do we move in Starfield? The development of the new Creation Engine 2 enables Bethesda Game Studios to reach a completely new level of graphics with Starfield. The new engine is designed to make the gameplay experience more immersive and realistic, giving players an immersive and visual experience. So in this section, we'll take a detailed look at Starfield's graphics and examine how the new Creation Engine 2 enhances the game. And to be clear, a new graphics platform was desperately needed after the recent titles to offer modern graphics. The graphics of Starfield will therefore be based on the new Creation Engine 2, which was developed by Bethesda Game Studios specifically for the development on Starfield and future games. The engine allows the game world to be rendered with an unprecedented level of detail and offers a significant leap towards modern graphically powerful titles. Ray tracing is also included for more realistic reflections and shadows. Overall, Creation Engine 2 offers a more detailed representation of the game world, higher quality characters and objects, and more realistic lighting effects. Thanks to advanced lighting technology and ray tracing, the world of Starfield thus appears more alive and offers up-to-date graphics performance. It remains an interesting question to what extent the port of the Xbox will influence the graphics options, especially in the high-end PC area, where there would be a lot of room for improvements. The battles will take place in real time, and players will be able to use various weapons and skills to defend themselves against their enemies. The improved graphics should help make these battles more realistic and offer a more immersive combat experience, which is more reminiscent of a shooter than a role-playing game. But modding will probably also be a topic again, and corresponding options are also to come for the current engine. But when will Starfield be released? Currently, there is talk of March 2023, but we have already seen several postponements of the title that should be released in 2022. So nothing is very set in stone yet. The COVID-19 pandemic has of course also had an impact of the development here, as it has on the whole industry, which has meant that binding deadlines have often fallen through. However, we assume that we will be able to immerse ourselves in the game by September 2023 at the latest, and that the currently planned release date in March is not all unrealistic. But regardless of when Starfield will be released, it is undoubtedly one of the most anticipated sci-fi role-playing games of recent years. And that was our XXL-Special on Starfield. I say goodbye until next time, see you soon, and see you in the verse.